Welcome to An Awful World, but not awful like you think.
This is the show where we discuss whether we would have discovered important advances in a world exclusively full of Haylies and Libbys. I'm Haylie.
And I'm Libby. And today we're talking about the death penalty. You can't say that excitedly.
No.
Like, death is in the name.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ugh.
We're not our usual spunky self. No, I'm kidding. I think this is actually going to be a really fun episode.
It will.
Which is kind of dark, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I have dark humor.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I know. Normally, like, you and I make really dark jokes and we are like cackling, and then everyone around us is like, oh,
okay?
no.
This is such a brief aside. Yesterday, I was looking for a GIF to send somebody at work, and my Google search prompted Google to give me the suicide hotline. And I was like, oh, wow, no, that's not, I can see where you would have thought that, but no, thank you. And then I couldn't find a good GIF, so that really sucked.
You're like, well, so now my computer is concerned.
On my work computer too, so that's good.
Remember that time that I was like, we should all kill ourselves in the office, and then like the next day, our like ethics guy was like, now if an employee is threatening to harm themselves, and I was like, oh my god,
I know. I was like, Haylie, I think he's talking about you. Tell him that you were mostly kidding.
And I was like, but I wasn't.
So don't do that. Don't kill yourself, and certainly don't let the state or your country kill you.
That's right.
And that's what we're talking about today. The death penalty. As almost every topic on this podcast is, this is really old.
It's hella old.
Literally, people been killing each other since, Cain versus Abel. But it's not just people killing each other that people get the death penalty for. So we'll get into that some. Mm-hmm. But we know that it's been around at least since like the 18th century BCE. Mm-hmm. Babylon, there was a thing called the Code of Hammurabi. Yes. Which Brian seemed to know something about, probably from like, I don't know, a video game, if I had to guess.
I've definitely heard of it, but then I was also like, I guess I didn't realize it like also codified the death penalty.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I've heard of it. I don't know. But he was like, oh yeah, the Code of Hammurabi. And I was like, totally. And then I was like I have no idea what he's talking about. So that is one of the first known written laws, like period, like not just codifying the death penalty. Yeah. But just like laws that we actually wrote down.
Something I just think is funny is that like we were like codifying that, like, it's okay. Don't worry. It's fine.
We can do this. We have a permit. Yeah. It's called the Code of Hammurabi.
Exactly. And you know what it says?
5 times fast. I do whatever I want. Yes. It's okay. I have a permit. So it prescribed the death penalty for only 25 different crimes.
Which feels high.
Yeah. And I know I said only. But, but later I'll tell you why I said that.
Okay.
But yeah, 25 different crimes. Obviously, like, I'm sure one of them was murder. I bet a lot of them are like theft based as well.
A lot of them for a long time included theft. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That's just too far.
Not quite that serious, I fear.
I've also thought it was like dramatic. Like, I don't
chopping
know how.
Hands off.
Yes. I'm like, I don't know how true it is. But also, I just feel like that's too far. Couldn't it just be like, give it back or pay for it?
But where's the fun in that? Because it's like, well, if we cut your hand off, then you can never steal again.
It's like, but also I have another hand over here.
And they're like, and we'll cut that one off too. You think we're joking?
Well, then who's going to wipe my butt?
Like you are.
How? I have no hands.
You don't need hands. You can, well.
You do.
You can maybe.
Just roll.
Around. Anyway. I don't want to get into nubs and anything like that.
Thing.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. Come see me in person if you have questions about that thought process. But it didn't prescribe like an exact method of execution. It just was like, you can execute people for these things and choose one of these methods. This is not an exhaustive list, by the way. Burning, drowning, and impalement, which all of those seem truly terrible.
Which one would you choose, though? Like, if tomorrow someone, like, you committed a crime and you were put up for the death penalty and those were your options, what would you choose?
I think I'd have to choose impalement.
Impalement?
Yeah, because here's the thing. Drowning, I think that's probably the worst thing that can happen to a person.
Yeah.
I don't know. Burning, that's going to be really painful. Eventually, though, you are going to lose consciousness.
Yes.
But how bad is that pain up until that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You think about you like accidentally burn your hand when you're like making muffins or something and how bad that hurts. And that's just like a second. And that's not even fire.
But also think about like when you burn your hand on something
and
you touch it, it takes a second for you to realize that it's hot.
It does.
And then it's more like, oh, that's hot. Move my hand. Not so much ow. It's the after pain.
Yeah.
That is hot. Like that hurts.
Yeah.
That like after it is starting to like bubble and like, you know? So it's, but I'm like, if you're continuously burning.
Yeah, what is that like?
When does the pain set in? Because it's the after that hurts.
Do you remember last year that guy that set himself on fire in like Chicago or whatever?
No.
At like a political rally.
Oh.
Yeah. Like just very gung-ho about his cause, I guess. And he made this like video beforehand and then he literally set himself on fire.
Wow.
And the videos are horrifying. I mean, he was screaming for a long time.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I imagine that's pretty bad. What would you choose though?
Now, part of me would choose drowning.
Really?
Here's my thinking. I have questions about it, I guess. Are they just going to like put me in a tank and then like put a lid on and then just kind of say like, you can't get out? Or are they going to hold you down?
Well, I think they're either going to hold you down or remember, this is, 18th century BCE. There is no, swimming lessons you can take down at the Little Fishes Club of Babylon. So I think a lot of people didn't know how to swim because it's like witches, right? When they would like throw them in and they're like, well, if they sink, then
they're not a witch, but if they float, then they are.
And
but then
we're going to kill you either way.
Exactly.
So
either way, they just want you dead.
Yes. So I don't know.
Because I'm kind of like, if they're going to hold me down, I'm going to inhale a bunch of water right away
just get
and
it
just
over
be like,
with.
Done. You know? Kind of a thing. And when I think about impalement,
I know.
there is this one episode of Bones that I it just lives very vividly in my mind where it's the it's the voodoo episode.
Okay.
And she goes to New Orleans and the guy thinks that he can like impale his daughter and then bring her back.
Yes.
But he puts her on like a hot stake because he thinks that like
it'll like cauterize the.
And I just think about the cauterization and I'm just like, ugh. But then I also think about the people who have been like stabbed like a billion times before they die.
Right.
And I'm like, I think I would rather just like inhale a bunch of water and get it
just
over
be
with.
done.
Yeah.
My only question is, I just wonder, like, is there a point, like someone's trying to drown you where your natural instincts to just like fight to stay alive kick in?
Oh, 100%.
Where it's just like, even if you could convince yourself, like, I want this over with, could you really stop? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you would definitely thrash.
Yeah.
Like, there's just, that's human nature.
Right.
But I think that I could just like
just
a bunch of water
do it.
until I just like pass out.
Yeah. Well,
either way, those three options, not good.
No,
there are
really
better options now.
Absolutely. Much better options. And I still, obviously don't agree with it, which we'll get into. So anyways, by the time, the ancient times come around, Egypt, Greece, Rome, those ones that you think of as being the early people of society, it was widely used, as we know, particularly in Rome. Crucifixion was something that was very common. Beheading also, and being thrown to wild animals.
See, that sounds rough. I wouldn't.
No, me either. That would be a slow death. But crucifixion, I don't know how much you know about the mechanics of crucifixion.
Yeah. I had to, even though I went to a public school, my mom's husband made me go sit out in a trailer during lunchtime or whatever, and we had to learn about Jesus.
Okay.
And she was very descriptive on the crucifixion.
And obviously, like, that wasn't just something special that they did for Jesus with the whole cross and everything.
Right. Even though He's the only one who can claim it.
I think it'd be interesting though to see like there's this the spoken word poet guy that I like, Christian, and he's like, do you realize how weird it is like that we wear crosses around our neck? That's like wearing an electric chair around your neck, like to the people of Rome.
It's like I saw a TikTok one time when it was like, if Jesus were to come back
in 2025.
Yes, and there's like a bunch of crosses on the wall and he's like, is this a threat?
I should send you the video of this guy who's like, if Jesus died in 2025, and he's like on his phone, he's like, oh no, Jesus dead at 33. I really liked him. It's hysterical. It's so funny. I should send it to you. But anyway, the mechanics of crucifixion are truly like, I think that's one of the most horrible ways to die.
It's very unsettling.
Yes.
This is what it just tells me is that I have always been correct in my saying
people are bad. I know.
People are bad.
I know. It's a truly like the creativity to come up with something like that, because part of it was like the way they would hang you would be so that you couldn't like take a big breath, really.
Yes.
And then they would break your legs so that you couldn't use your feet, which by the way are nailed into a piece of wood. Yeah. To hold yourself up so that you could breathe better. Mm-hmm. And so it was obviously like a very long process to crucify somebody, because it's just like slowly asphyxiating, which is horrible. But they also did like beheading and like I said, the wild animals.
Which of those three, beheading all the way?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I think everybody could agree on that, right?
Chop my head off, put it in a basket.
Guillotine.
Guillotine.
But Haylie, we signed a treaty with the king whose head is now in a basket. Would you like to take it out and ask it?
Actually, I would.
Ripe with Hamilton references. So anyway, by the Middle Ages, it's used extensively in Europe for all kinds of things. Theft, which we already talked about. Mm-hmm. Also heresy. That is frightening.
Yeah.
That you could just be like, say anything that I'm guessing is, would be any kind of like anti-Christian.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's the type of heretics we're going after here.
Right.
And then treason. And so that's kind of when other things come around, like hanging, burning at the stake, and then being drawn and quartered, which is
yeah, that's awful. Too far. Mm-hmm. And what I love about the guillotine is I'm always coming back to it.
What I love about the guillotine is this.
What I love about it is you get all the theatrics because people are insane. And by the Middle Ages, they're like, let's do this in public.
Yes, which they thought was going to deter people. But then people would come out and be like, let's go. This is going to be a show.
Because people
are bad.
Have bloodlust.
I
These
know.
people are bad.
Yeah.
But it gives you all the theatrics. But it's quick.
Over.
You don't feel it.
Yeah.
Your head is dead.
Yep.
And people are like, well, no, their head's still alive because they would like blink. And I'm like, I think that's just nerve endings.
Yeah.
Like just little twitches, whatever. But I'm like, I want something quick, easy, get it over with.
Yeah.
Why on earth are you like, let's just pull them apart at the limbs?
I am telling you, the creativity, though. I mean, that is truly something.
You know what? Never mind. I'm not going to say this.
God, I can only imagine what that was about.
Someone could very easily be like, she should be committed. So I'm not going to say it.
She should be on an FBI watch list. That's such an interesting thing. And so like Brian and I were talking about this morning about the guillotine, because he was also like, yeah, the guillotine's great, because before that, it was just like a dude with a big sword, and like aim could be totally off, and like it would not be just in one fell swoop.
No.
Next thing you know, someone's hacking at your head. I mean, that's just a lot.
Yeah.
So the guillotine's just straight down.
Could you imagine having that job though? Like you have to be like a fucking psychopath.
Well, so we were talking about that too, because we were talking about like the firing squad.
Yeah.
Which I was like, so in college, I took a death penalty class.
Right.
And it was fucking amazing. And I loved it so much. And I would take it again.
Right. And I know we talked about this during the prison episode.
Yes, correct. So I took the death penalty class, and we talked about how when they came up with the firing squad method, they did that as a way to prevent like executioner's guilt, because like it's a real thing. And so I was telling him like, that's why they do like the hoods, was to like conceal the identity of the executioner. So it wasn't just like oh, well, you kill people for a living. And he was like, well, you're not going to notice this ginormous guy carrying a big sword. Like, he's the only guy that's 6'5" in the village. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. But like, you understand the reasoning behind that. Like, yeah, it's a fucked up thing.
Yeah.
It's fucked up that it was so public too.
Yes.
Especially just like apparently would get like super like rowdy and like, I don't even.
Yes. And people loved it. And then like it just continued forever. I mean, not forever, but like, I mean, it made its way here to the States. And then there were like lynchings and like, which still happen.
I know.
Less publicly, but like, that was a big thing here, hanging slaves and all of that, because this country is bad and this country is evil and people are bad and I hate it here. But something I did want to mention is we have a friend from law school who is from Wisconsin, and she has told me this several times about how apparently they did one public execution in Wisconsin, and because like the death penalty and whatever, and they had one public hanging and people were so upset by it that they immediately outlawed it and it never happened again.
Yeah.
And it's like, see,
if
like,
the general public like saw in a little bit of a different way what it's like, I think that they would absolutely be like, no more.
Yeah. But people like to think that they're better than other people and that other people deserve to die. And I mean, think about how men feel about women.
Yeah. I mean, true. That's so true.
So people are just like, yeah, murder them.
Yeah.
And
which is crazy.
At our movies. Everybody's like, shoot them.
Which like, whatever, in a movie, fine. But like, I think a lot of people have never seen a person die like that.
Yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole, a spiral, like a year and a half ago, if you'll recall, and I'm sure you will, of the hockey player, right?
Oh my God, yes.
That
really kept you up at night.
It did keep me up at night because I saw the video on Twitter, like unintentionally.
Yeah.
Like it's just scrolling through and I was like, what's this? And then I was like, oh my God, that made me so sick to my stomach for weeks.
Yeah.
And like, that wasn't even like, you know, I mean, obviously part of it is like, it's so unexpected, but like, that I was just scrolling through and I was like, what's this? And then I literally just watched a person die. But I mean, yeah, it's just, ugh.
Yeah.
I just don't know how people could stand to like watch something like that. It's gross.
I know.
It's icky to me.
I know.
But
it is. It's a lot.
People are a lot though.
People are a lot.
So in the Middle Ages, I'm guessing that you know who played a very large role in these executions. It is the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
I know this is shocking information.
I was thinking like one individual, and I was like, I don't know.
The Pope, but not the American Pope, because he's awesome.
From Chicago.
Yes, he is. So the Catholic Church, obviously, during the Inquisition, and like the Crusades and all of that, that was just like if the Crusades existed today, I feel like they would have T-shirts that say like #murder for Jesus. And I think I've talked about this before. Just like, that's what it was. They were just like, you will convert or you will die.
I mean,
those are your options.
That's kind of what's happening here right now.
What? No. What? So obviously, they did a lot of that. And that, again, a lot of people who were quote unquote heretics being put to death during that time. Then we move to somewhat more recent times, the 16th to 18th centuries. In England, there was something that was called the Bloody Code. Now, the reason I said earlier only 25 crimes is because in the Bloody Code, it was 200 different crimes.
That's
it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
What, you just like cough too close to somebody? And
apparently,
like
even very minor theft was something that they could put you to death for.
That's redonk.
It is redonk. It's absolutely crazy. So that's when they did all the public executions. And then, as with so many things, the Enlightenment saved us because a bunch of people in England were like, is this sort of gross? And everyone was like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, we trash. Yeah.
Kinda.
Oh. So that's when like a lot of like modern death penalty, you know, criticism comes along and starts to become like this like topic, if you will. It's always been a hot topic in society, like abortion and the death penalty. You know, they're just right up there together.
Even though they are not the same.
No, they're very different things. But then there was also, because of the Enlightenment, like a shift towards more humane methods of putting people to death. And a bunch of states, like in the United States, immediately abolished the death penalty, like right away. We were like, we're not doing it. Like Michigan was immediately like, no, thank you. And I respect that. And that's why they're pure Michigan. Okay. Pure. But that was when the guillotine, because we've talked about this before, how like they used it up until like the 1970s.
Yeah.
Because it was considered to be extremely humane. Yeah. And honestly, like it kind of seems like it was. Like I kind of agree with it. Like if I had to choose from any method, that seems pretty good, you know? But then also they like invented the electric chair around that time, and they were like, this is also humane. It's like,
and I don't see how it is. And I don't see how anyone ever thought that it was.
No, me either. Because I don't know if you know that they like, you know, they like put something in your mouth to like keep you from biting on your tongue, which like, why?
Which like, yeah, you're going to die anyways.
Right?
Might as well let them bite their tongue right off.
Right. But then they also put you like, they put like a wet sponge on your head because
of the water.
Water, is a conductor. Maybe that'll come up later. Who knows? And just like literally zap the shit out of you. I mean, that just sounds horrible. And I also think it takes a long time. Yeah. Like by way of comparison, you know what I mean? Like a minute maybe.
Right.
For you to like die.
Yeah. I mean, that's better than like burning to death. That would take a really long time.
Yes. But it will also like burn your skin.
Right.
Which is just,
Either way, you're not having a good time. Which I understand that they're like, you're a bad person. You don't deserve to have a good time.
Well,
but
yes.
Also, I mean, they're still a person.
Yes. And we'll get into it.
I've
got thoughts.
I've got thoughts.
I got feelings. Okay, so by the 20th century, there's a global shift towards abolishment. And in the United States, there was a case in 1972 called Furman versus Georgia, which said this is unconstitutional because it's being applied so like arbitrarily that we're just, no, we're done with it. It was reinstated in 1976 by a different case called Gregg versus Georgia. So they said, fine, we'll have the death penalty, but only under certain, you know, strict guidelines in terms of like what we're going to do and who we're going to subject to it and all this stuff. And then that's when like new methods started to come up again. That's when they came up with the gas chamber and lethal injection, which was first used in 1982, which is a lot later than I thought, honestly. Yeah. Like, I feel like they've been using it for like 75 years, but not so. Not since 1982. Nowadays, over 70% of countries in the world have abolished the death penalty in some form, but it's still used, obviously, in a lot of places.
Our country included.
Yes, and I was just about to say, let me read to you some of the countries that are in the same company with us. China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Just let that sink in, United States. You feel good about that? Great. So let's talk about it. The death penalty.
Do you think we would have the death penalty?
Absolutely no question in my mind that we would not have the death penalty.
Really?
I don't think so. So for me, my thought process is this. And, well, now I'm questioning a little bit because I used to be like kind of pro death penalty before I took that class.
Right.
And some of it was like, yeah, obviously like a morality thing. Like you did something bad. You killed somebody, usually. I mean, always now, with some sort of aggravating circumstance. And now we are going to take you out of the equation. And I always thought, well, like, you know, it makes more sense because it's cheaper than letting somebody sit in prison for however many years.
Even though it is not.
It is not. That is a huge misconception. And that really changed my mind. That was one of the things that changed my mind. Because my whole thought process is like, yes, those people should not be reintroduced to society.
No.
There's no rehabilitating somebody like that. and they should sit in jail the rest of their life.
And by somebody like that, we're talking specifically about like who the death penalty is used for today.
Yes,
no
correct.
one by the Hammurabi Code or, the 200 crimes, no theft, no, that kind of
strictly
stuff.
Murder.
Yes, this is like murderers, treasoners, that
all
kind of
that
stuff.
kind of stuff. Yes.
I don't think treasoners is a word.
It's all right. You know, people who've committed treason.
That's right.
I think, like I said, there's like no place. And a lot of the time, and I know we talked about this in the prisons episode because the topics go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. But like these people are not mentally well.
Right.
This professor of the death penalty class that I took was a post-conviction relief attorney for people on death row. And so she had a lot of interactions with those people. And I mean, some of the stories she would tell of exactly what was going on with a person, like at the time that they committed whatever crime, whatever murder they did. And you're just like, they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Doesn't make it okay. No. Doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does explain it.
Every once in a while, they do know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Think Ted Bundy.
I mean, no, that's totally true.
You know?
There are a lot of people who are rightfully on, death row.
Right.
But if we can't rehabilitate them, then we need to just leave it alone, in my opinion, because it costs less. And it actually does cost less. I know some of you are like, you're listening to this. Because up until recently, at least, the countries in Europe have stopped selling us the cocktail of drugs that we need to put people to death because it doesn't always work super well.
Yeah.
And like what it does is legit just like induce you to have a heart attack. And that is inhumane, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to like decide like what is humane? Like, do we like, I think people think of lethal injection as like putting someone down like a dog, and that's not what it is.
No. But I don't understand, why don't we do it that way?
I don't
you would
either.
Put someone down like a dog.
I don't either.
It's something I kind of think about. And this is where I was like, maybe I would be committed. But don't you think we could just put somebody under anesthesia
and then do it?
And then just like shoot them in the head?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that.
But why don't we?
I don't know. I still think there are so many.
We have anesthesia in this country.
Yeah.
We have a billion guns.
A lot of it.
Why don't we just put them to sleep?
Right.
We're just like, love you, miss you, pow.
You're going to be the executioner. Love you, miss you, pow.
Exactly. Sometimes don't you just like think at night, like, how would I murder someone?
If I had to do it?
How would I want to die?
I can either confirm or deny that I've had those thoughts. No, I'm kidding. Well, I've thought about like this a lot with women. We tend to be very passive killers, like we've talked about. So I would rather like just like drug somebody up, like anesthesia, but I don't want to be shooting anybody.
I'm just saying it would be quick.
No, I don't disagree with you.
And we've got plenty of guns.
I'm
so
just
I'm just
not
like,
in favor.
They wouldn't feel it.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
So that's what I'm just like thinking. I'm just like, I feel like, and I love anesthesia. I am
I do too.
I wish I had a surgery.
It's like
come
a great
up,
nap.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, put me under and then just murder me. I don't really care how you do it, but like put me under and then just like take me out. That is all I am looking for.
Why do we even need AI when Haylie just says the bits without needing that? Well, so this just occurred to me. I think part of the reason we don't use anesthesia is because doctors are anesthesiologists. They're the ones that have to administer it, and they take a Hippocratic oath that says they will do no harm.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Who's administering these other drugs? Because
they're drugs that aren't regulated by the FDA, I don't think, though.
Okay, well, then let's buy some black market anesthesia because it doesn't matter if you're not doing it. Like, if you're giving them too much, you're killing them anyway.
I know. Yes. But like, they took an oath. Do no harm.
Right. But I'm like, the person who's giving you these other cocktails, to have them buy black market anesthesia and then just like overdose them.
And then just do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just saying it feels like there's more humane options out there.
Well, yeah.
And I mean,
I think we can all agree on that.
With it, but like,
yeah, we can all agree on that for sure. And I also think, and obviously this is very hard to say for sure because this hasn't happened to me and I hope it never does happen to me. But like, nobody in my family has been murdered. And I think that a lot of times those family members think that they would feel better if they got to see the person be put to death.
Yes.
But there's been a lot of stuff to suggest that they don't, because it's just more death. It's just more loss of life. And I also think, in a way, for some of these people in an awful world, that you don't get to get out that easy. Like, you're going to live the rest of your days in, a 4x6 cell thinking about what you did.
Mm-hmm. Now, and I know we've talked about this a lot on the prison episode, is that we would be much more into therapy, because a lot of these people are people who have severe mental problems, people who grew up in really bad homes, things like that. But every once in a while, you get somebody like Ted Bundy, who is just
an actual psychopath.
Yes, just a sociopath.
Again, he can't be redeemed. He could not have been redeemed.
Now, here's my thing, is I feel like maybe at some point we would come up with the death penalty, but then we would get rid of it real quick.
Yeah, and be like,
But I think that what we may have in another situation is, like, say somehow a Haylie or Libby turns out to be a Ted Bundy type character.
Which we talked about.
Because every once in a while, you're going to just get somebody whose brain chemistry is like that.
They're just hardwired a little different.
Exactly. And so let's just say there is a Haylie Bundy out there. Now, I feel like, as the Haylies and Libbys who are running our governments, I feel like we would be like, okay, here are our options.
Like, what do we do?
Yes, here are our options. We can shun them. I do feel like an island of just like the misfit toys,
the misfit murderers.
Exactly. Like, that could work.
Yeah.
But also, I kind of feel like we would say, hey, people who love these people who were murdered, if you want to do it, we'll turn a blind eye. We won't prosecute you for it, but the government isn't going to do it.
And see, I think here's a question for you. In an awful world, in this world, doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it is better to let one murderer go free or to kill an innocent person? I mean,
I think it's better to wait. Okay, so one innocent person, is murdered.
Yes,
kill an innocent person or let a murderer go free.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's better to let a murderer go free.
I think so too, and so that's part of it too. Is that like, and that's been part of the conversation for a long time with the death penalty, because as we talk about even in prisons episode, and will come up again, crime and the prosecution of crime disparately occurs against people of color more than it does white people. And I think we've talked about that's not because white people commit fewer crimes.
No,
it's because
they're committing more crimes.
Yes, some from places of very public high power.
They're just getting away with it. And everybody's like, oh, they're smart. Wow. And I'm like, they're not. They're on 20 pills of ketamine and pissing their pants in public.
What? No. Wielding a chainsaw is perfectly normal behavior, Haylie.
When that news came out, though, I was like, yeah, didn't we all know that?
That's what I said, too. I was like, why are we acting surprised? Yeah, didn't everybody know that?
Yeah,
anyway.
Anywho.
So obviously it disparately affects people of color. And so I think also, like, what I love about our legal system, I really do admire our legal system in the way that it was designed, not necessarily in the way that it's playing out. Because right now it's not playing out very well.
No, it's not working that well.
There's through no fault of...
Except for most of the courts. Not all the courts, but most of the courts are doing their job. Yes. And it makes me really proud to be in the legal field. Agree.
And honestly, I wouldn't be a lawyer if I didn't admire the way our system was set up. And I didn't believe in that, because I do. It's one of the things I believe in so much about this country. But is that it is designed of, beyond a reasonable doubt, the burden is so high because the stakes is somebody's life, right? And so, what if, like, think about when DNA became a thing and, like, people were acquitted from crimes, that they didn't commit, that they've been sitting in prison for 20 years for a crime they didn't commit, and then they get acquitted. But, like, some states like Texas, they moved so fast with the way they execute people. It's just like bing, 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 boom. Bop, bam. Type of shit I'm on you wouldn't understand. And I don't understand Texas. I don't. But I don't know. So it's like, well, is that a like intervening concern of just like, well, how are we sure that this person like 100% sure that they did it and they're the person that needs to go down for this. And I don't know. These are the things
I'm not going down for this.
what I searched that brought up the suicide thing was I don't want to die here. Because I was anyway.
I just think that
die here.
I just think that I think that we would be like, you know, somebody murdered somebody. We all watched it happen. They should die for that crime. You know, take them out. And like really quickly we would be like, yeah, death penalty. And then it would like happen. And then we would all be like, oh, or we would be like, yeah, we're going to kill this person. And then we would be like, well, who's going to do it?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And it like wouldn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, there are like a handful of people that I'm like, take them out. But then I'm like, I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to do it.
It's not going to be me. I want somebody else to do it. And then I'll be like, yeah.
I'm not going down for this.
But I don't actually want to.
I could not live with myself. Even if it was a person that I felt like the punishment fit the crime, shall we say?
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. There's no way.
The only thing I can think of, and here's the one crime that I personally believe that like I could really get on board for the death penalty.
Rape. No.
Pedophilia.
Well, yeah.
You know, child rape.
You know what? And I think a lot of people feel that way. And because I'm kind of the same where I'm just like, you're too fucked up. Like, we can't bring you back from that.
I don't even want to put you on another island.
No.
You know, you don't even get to go to the island of misfit murderers. You die here.
I mean, you're going to die in prison. People are going to come after you.
Yes. And I just think, you know, and again, I think it would be one of those things where we're like, okay, we're not going to do it. But if you kill them, we're not going to prosecute you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If someone else wants to like take them out, we're all just going to let it slide. We're going to do a whole goodbye Earl situation. You know?
Earl had to die.
You know, we're all just going to be like, oh, well, we just sell jam at this stand and like, nobody misses him. And everyone's going to be like, okay.
I just think that for me, for the Libbies of an awful world, we're like, just because this person did something horrible to somebody else, whether that's like, you know, being a pedophile or a child molester or a rapist or a murderer or whatever, doesn't make it right for me to kill them. You know what I mean? It's like two wrongs don't make a right type thing.
Right.
You know?
But I also think that like, if someone that I loved, a child, was, you know,
100%, 100%.
I would be like, I will take you out on their behalf. Kind of a thing.
Literally, Brian and I were watching a TV show last week where this, fictional TV show, man was molesting his daughter, and his wife had kind of figured it out and was trying to like kill his sex drive so that he wouldn't do it anymore instead of like handling it a different and better way. And I just turned to Brian and I said, I would fucking kill you.
Yes.
If you touched our child, I would kill you.
And that's why I'm kind of like, should it be like a stranger whose job is to like murder people like on behalf of the government? That feels weird.
Yeah.
But also like, if you are a loved one of a child who was assaulted in a sexual manner, I think it's okay. You go ahead and murder whoever you need to murder.
You do what you like.
That's right. Live. I think that it's okay. And I think like the Haylies and Libbies, our government would just be like, all right. We're just going to turn a blind eye to that.
We're not going to do it. Yeah. But I totally get that of being like, put yourself in that like situation.
Yes.
Like, and that's the thing is like I said, like I can't judge these things or like how those families feel because I've not ever been put in that situation.
Right.
So I can't, I can't be like, well, this is how I would respond. I have no idea how I'd respond other than I think I would kill my spouse if they did that to somebody.
I just think that like, I don't have kids, but I am a mama bear.
Yes. Fiercely protective of the people you love.
100%. And like my husband has been, you know, through the ringer with certain people and I become fiercely protective.
Yeah. And you're just like, I'm done with you.
Yes. And I'm like, I would do anything to protect him and the people that I love. And I'm like, imagine a small child.
Yes.
I'm like, I would murder somebody. Yeah. Absolutely. And I would not feel bad about it for a second. Yeah. And I probably would not be so humane about it. But it's that kind of situation. It's like the like people who are chronic domestic abusers and pedophiles and things like that. Those are the people where I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
you have something wrong with you, and to the point where like therapy's probably not going to fix it.
Right.
And people who I think therapy's probably not going to fix it, but like at least there's some humanity left in you.
Yeah, there's some value.
We can put you in a prison and therapy and whatever, or on our little island of creeps, but whatever. But there are certain people who I just think that I would be like, as the government, I'm not going to step in. But also, if you like hand me like some proof that's like this person was doing really, really bad things and like someone took them out, I'd be like, I didn't, whatever.
Too bad. Yeah. I don't know. It's that age-old question of like that show Dexter, where because he's like, he kills, murderers basically. So it's just like, does it like, is he a bad person? I don't know. It's just such an interesting thing to like churn. Right. And I don't know that I have an answer for that.
I know. And that's why I'm just kind of like, would we have the death penalty? I think for like a second we would.
Maybe.
But then we would be like, wow, actually this is icky.
And like, this doesn't feel good.
No.
This doesn't feel right.
But I just think that I would be like, as somebody who is a little vengeful, I allow you to have the right to like, you get like one free kill.
Yeah. Don't blow it all at once. That's all right.
Pick someone really, really bad. You kill them and the state will say,
and we'll be done.
We'll just stay out of it, whatever. But like what's so icky about it to me is that like these people who don't know these people, were not there, didn't witness it happen, are making the decision. And somebody who it's literally just like some stranger's job to just like come to work and be like, all right, let me murder you.
Yes.
Like that feels weird.
Yeah, it's incredibly weird.
They should at least let a loved one of the victim murder them.
Yeah. Well, they do let them go there and watch if they want to.
I know, but I'm like, I would feel better.
Yeah.
If I got to do it.
But would you?
I know, but
you don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can't say one way or the other. Maybe.
But there's like a handful of people out there where I'm like, I want to watch the life drain from your eyes.
Oh my God. Wow.
So the Haylies may be more into it. But again, not on a state level.
No, definitely not on a state level. And that's what I was just thinking about is like the government obviously has like a vested interest in protecting its people. And that's a good thing, right? But where is the line on something like that? Like what does that really permit us to do in terms of, taking a life? I don't know.
I'm just saying, there was somebody who was almost murdered, like a year ago and they weren't. And I was kind of like, don't attempt it if you're
going to
not good at it, like leave that to someone with more experience. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So there's just a few people that I
get it. I get it.
I want to watch it.
Yeah.
I want to gif it.
I know you do. You want to boomerang it.
That's right. JFK style, Jeez. I'm just saying, there's certain people out there who are just that bad.
Yeah.
But like the majority of people are just like regular bad.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's like
just stay away from me.
You'll just like think to yourself, like, what kind of sympathy would you have in a situation of like it's Hitler that's being put to death?
Exactly.
Like let's say he didn't take the cyanide pill, and we captured him and, he goes to trial and obviously.
Then I'd be like, yeah, murder
Exactly.
Hitler.
Like that's one situation where I'd be like, you absolutely deserve it. Every bad thing that's ever, gonna come to you. But am I going to be the person that brings those bad things to you? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. I'm like, in a
Am I
Hitler
gonna be
situation,
sad?
I'm sure you knew several people who were murdered and you probably would be like, yeah. But
then it's also like you talk about like regular bad people, like what happened in Germany in the 1930s was a product of one really, really bad person brainwashing a bunch of other people. And then they went along with it because they are regular bad people.
Yeah.
A lot of them are also very bad people, like the Mengelas, the higher whatever. But so then it's just like, where's the line? I don't know.
I know. And that's why I'm like, at some point,
I don't know.
I feel like we would be like, depending on the crime, we'll look the other way.
We'll
take
it in.
Just this once, you get one freebie. kind of thing. And
yeah, because it couldn't be every time.
No,
right?
And I think that like people would really think like, is this the one person I want to murder?
Right.
Because next time I go to jail.
Right.
Like, is there someone worse?
Yeah, because you think about people in our, this world that murder somebody that's abusing them or whatever, like not in like a moment of self-defense so much as just like, here's my chance to get out, type of thing.
Yes.
And like, we send those people to jail. I don't know how I feel about that.
I feel really badly about it. I don't like it at all.
It's not great.
They don't have to be actively being hurt if this is their one chance.
Yeah, if this is their chance to run.
Over here, they don't have the chance to do it. They have to wait until he's asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like, that's still battered women syndrome.
Yeah, for sure.
The end.
Yeah.
Don't put her in jail. He deserved it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. That's why I'm like, you get one.
Yeah.
You get one.
Now, beyond capital punishment, what do we think about like chopping off extremities?
That feels too far to me.
Even if it's a male extremity?
That one's less extreme to me. Which is insane because because it feels more extreme to men.
But at the same time, it's like if you're a pedophile,
exactly,
and that's the punishment.
You can't use it properly. Yeah, you don't deserve. You don't get it.
Yeah, I don't feel too bad about that, honestly.
Yeah, I could be into that.
Yeah,
I could be into that. You know what? This is super weird. The other night, and I would like to preface this: I love Ty very much, but the other night, you ever like just bite Brian?
No.
Okay, maybe it's just me. I like sometimes just bite Ty, and then sometimes I bite too hard, and then I'm like, you know what? I love you, so I won't. But sometimes when I just like bite your shoulder to just be like, sometimes I want to just like chomp down as hard as I can to see if I could like break the skin and like how far I could get. And he's like, please don't do that. And I'm like, I won't because I love you. But sometimes I want to see how far I could take it. He was like, what is wrong with you?
Deranged. Oh my God, no.
I just want to know. I want to know what force I've got. I don't know.
Interesting. I want to know what kind of power I have.
I mean, I'm sure I could break skin, but like, could I bite something off?
I don't know.
Haven't you ever seen that episode of Grey's Anatomy where she's like choking on that guy's dick because she did it off? I'm just saying.
Yes, I have. I bet
I could bite a penis off.
I don't know.
I think I could.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a moment of like trying to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But then I also think that like I see blood and then I just like pass out.
Yeah.
So then I would like choke and die. So like
so it wouldn't work out for you.
Is that really the way I want to go out? That feels really embarrassing.
Yeah, and I don't feel like we need to use our mouths to accomplish that.
No. So. But I'm just kind of like, could I?
Would I? No, my intrusive thoughts, are not about biting people. It's usually pulling fire alarms or sticking gum in people's hair or tripping children that are running in public. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick my foot out and I'm not going to feel bad.
Mine are always like injuring myself. Like one time I was in the kitchen and I was in like a crop top and shorts and I had pulled cookies out of the oven and I was like, all I want to do is
put
like
them on your face.
Up. Well, normally I want to put them on my face, but I wanted to lean up and put it like right into like my stomach. And I was like, why would I do that? Why would I put the hot cookie sheet on my skin?
Intrusive thoughts.
Yes. And then I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Well,
a lot. But, it's fine.
Join the club, though.
You're right. I think that certain extremities could be cut off.
Yeah.
But not for theft. That feels too
Well, no, not for theft. But, no, I was thinking specifically of like sexual crimes.
For sexual crimes, I would cut a dick off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels justified.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
And like those guys who like shove their hands up people's skirts, they could lose a hand.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't care who's going to wipe your ass. It's not going to be me. But,
well, you'll have another hand, so don't do it again.
Right.
True. So, wow. We have a lot of thoughts on the death penalty and other types of penalties.
Now, really quick, one thing though, with the cutting off the extremities, who's going to do that? Because as we've just pointed out, I pass out at the sight of blood.
Yeah, I know. And here we're back to the point of like me being like, I don't think I can do this,
Maybe if we guillotine it on just a hand.
Yeah, maybe.
But it'd be hard to like.
Maybe to get that set up.
Guillotine?
Probably.
I mean, wouldn't they have to be like aroused? Well,
I think it just depends.
We just have to have a tiny guillotine.
The little buddy guillotine.
The little buddy. Because I feel like if we're just like holding a rope and we're a little further away, we could put like a curtain over it,
No, you don't get that decency. But me is still like, I don't think I can do this.
I could pull a rope.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. And then I would be like, all right, clean yourself up. You deserve that. You're a criminal.
God, yes. Yeah, well, moving on. It's like John Bobbitt. I know we've talked about this before, like Lorena Bobbitt, she cut off his penis. And I'm always just like, well.
Feels like you deserve
seem
that.
kind of like a jackass.
Yeah.
So who do I believe, her or you?
Exactly.
I think it's going to be her.
Exactly.
Even though she drove really far and then threw it into like the parking lot of a 7-Eleven, which is just really funny. So anyway. You have anything else to say about the death penalty?
I don't
think I do either. This is an interesting topic. It's a fun one.
Yes.
And that sounds, again, so dark. We're just back to where I started being like, this is super fun. But it's just like, it fascinates me. It always has fascinated me. It's like one of those topics in class where they're like, write a persuasive essay. And I'm like, I want to do the death penalty. And they're like, no, that's been done so many times. I'm like, damn, I hate that. Anyway, thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode on the death penalty, definitely check us out on the socials. We are on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. You can listen to us on YouTube. You can check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. If you would like to tell us something you would like to hear about in an awful world, you can join our Patreon.
Yes, and put it in the Thoughts for Your Thoughts column.
Thoughts for Your Thoughts.
That's right.
Is what we would like to hear. To join the Patreon, you go to patreon.com/anawfulworldpodcast. There's a couple different tiers. Check it out. You get some cool merch with each of the tiers. So we'd really love your support to help keep the podcast going. But until we see you next time, we hope your day is simply awful.